You've probably been told your entire life to uh, just be yourself if you want to build confidence.
Right. Yeah. The classic advice.
Exactly. Like we've all been fed this narrative that if you just, accept who you are, project positivity, and act authentically, the world will just eventually recognize your value.
Yeah, the whole finding yourself movement.
Right. But today, we are looking at a psychological framework that argues the exact opposite of that.
It really does. It's a complete 180.
It argues that to become dangerously confident, the very first thing you must do is actually assassinate the person you currently are.
It is a total, just uncompromising demolition of modern self-help culture.
Yeah, it really doesn't pull any punches.
Not at all. The material we're unpacking today completely rejects that whole idea of, finding yourself. It replaces it with this idea of forging yourself into something impenetrable.
So picture this. Have you ever found yourself sitting in a high-stakes meeting or, I don't know, maybe even just a crowded social setting, and you have this crystal clear thought,
Oh, absolutely.
a really genuine contribution, but instead of just opening your mouth and saying it, you just freeze.
You hold back.
You wait for the absolute perfect opening in the conversation. You run the phrasing through your head like 3 times to make sure it doesn't sound stupid.
Right, checking for any possible flaw.
Yeah. You wait for this magical internal feeling of readiness. And as you sit there, calculating the exact risk-to-reward ratio of speaking up, you watch someone else just take it.
Someone with way less information.
Exactly. Someone who maybe has like half the facts you do, but 10 times the audacity. They just drop their opinion right into the center of the table.
Everyone buys it.
They claim the moment, they take the credit, and the entire room just nods and believes them.
It is agonizing to watch. You're sitting there with the architectural blueprint for the perfect idea, and you are literally watching the loudest person in the room walk away with the keys to the building.
It's the worst feeling.
It is. And the painful truth is, in that moment, the room doesn't actually care about the accuracy of your hidden blueprint.
No, they don't.
They care about the certainty of the person who actually spoke up.
And that painfully relatable scenario brings us to the core paradigm shift of today's deep dive.
Right.
We are looking at confidence completely wrong. We treat it like an innate personality trait, like having green eyes or being left-handed.
Like you're just born with it.
Yeah, you think you're either born with it or you're just doomed to navigate the world without it forever.
But the material we are dissecting today suggests something far more tactical.
And frankly, far more aggressive.
Yes.
Confidence isn't a personality trait.
Yeah.
It is a weapon. And if you refuse to pick it up, someone else is absolutely going to use it against you.
Drawing on the philosophy of Niccolo Machiavelli to basically fundamentally rewire your psychological operating system.
So over the course of this deep dive, we are going to deconstruct this Machiavellian blueprint.
Step by step.
We're going to explore how to eradicate the subconscious habits that make you weak, how to physically shift the atmospheric pressure of a room without saying a single word.
Which is harder than it sounds.
Oh, much harder. And how to calibrate your speech so that people stop questioning your authority.
Right.
We'll examine how to build this psychological fortress so dense that insults and praise just bounce right off you.
And by the end of this, we're going to unpack a framework for handling the one thing that terrifies all of us.
Rejection.
Exactly. We're going to look at the exact mechanics of how to take a no and use it to completely flip the power dynamic on the person who rejected you.
I love that part. But before you can reshape the external world, you have to win the war inside your own skull.
You do.
You have to eliminate what the framework calls the inner servant.
Yeah, so the premise here starts with a pretty hard truth about human conditioning.
Okay.
The framework argues that your weakness, your hesitation, your anxiety about speaking up, none of that is actually who you are.
Right.
You were not born terrified of a boardroom. You were conditioned into it. It's the result of decades of repetition.
From school, basically.
Exactly. From the moment you enter the school system, you're trained to raise your hand, ask for permission, follow strict rules, and constantly seek the approval of an authority figure.
And you're rewarded heavily for doing that.
You are heavily rewarded for compliance.
So we are basically bred to be manageable. We're trained to ask, is it okay if I speak now? Is it okay if I take up space?
Precisely. And this conditioning creates the entity that the video calls the inner servant.
The inner servant.
Right. This is that internal voice that reflexively begs for permission. It's the instinct that makes you type out an email and then go back and add, just checking in, or no worries if not.
Ugh, I do that all the time.
We all do. Or it's the physical flinch you experience when you sense someone might be judging you.
Yeah.
The framework describes this servant as a loyal, frightened dog, constantly looking up at its master, which in this case is society just waiting for a command.
The breakdown gets incredibly blunt about this. It says flat out, nice men are tools.
Yeah, that's a harsh quote.
It really is. They are utilized by the system, they are exhausted by the system, and when they burn out, they're just casually discarded and replaced.
That's the Machiavellian reality.
Right, powerful people aren't nice, they are precise. And precision cannot coexist with a mind that is constantly apologizing for its own existence.
The inner servant operates purely on the desire for harmony. It wants everyone to be comfortable.
Sure.
But the framework argues that true power requires friction. If you are constantly smoothing over the friction just to make others comfortable, you are bleeding your own agency.
Okay, let me push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because comparing human social behavior to being a tool is a pretty grim way to look at the world. It is dark, yeah.
If I think about this like a smartphone, being a people pleaser, being polite and cooperative, that feels like our factory setting.
Evolutionarily speaking, yes.
Right. We're social creatures. If our ancestors weren't nice and cooperative, they got kicked out of the tribe and eaten by wolves.
Exactly.
And the modern world is built on people being polite and observing social contracts. So isn't it profoundly dangerous and maybe even self-destructive to just kill that instinct and walk around acting like some unfeeling conqueror?
That is exactly the friction this philosophy wants you to grapple with.
Okay.
The goal isn't to become some cartoon villain or a mindless sociopath who just derives joy from hurting people.
So I don't need to yell at my barista.
No. It's not about being needlessly cruel to the barista who messes up your coffee.
Oh.
The strategy is about reclaiming absolute control over your own agency through a mechanism called inversion.
Inversion. Okay, so identifying the factory setting and deliberately running the code in reverse. Exactly. The framework demands that you observe your physical and mental reflexes and then brutally countermand them.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, every time your inner servant tells you to physically shrink in a chair to take up less room, you must consciously expand your posture.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Every time you feel that anxious urge to over-explain a simple decision to a coworker, you have to bite your tongue and deliberately pause.
That's hard.
It is. And every time you want to apologize for a delay that wasn't your fault, you replace the "I'm sorry" with a flat, direct stare.
It's about breaking the muscle memory of submission.
Yes, exactly. Danger is confidence. In this context, it's not a feeling.
It's not.
No, it's not like waking up one day and feeling magically brave. It is an identity forged in absolute defiance against your own submissive habits.
That's intense.
You have to become feared by your former self. You consciously stop nodding your head like a bobblehead just to show someone you're listening.
I definitely do the bobblehead thing.
Right. You stop softening your vocal tone to sound less threatening. If a habit makes you small, you eradicate it.
But if you are constantly at war with your own instincts, how does this actually translate to the physical world?
What do you mean?
Let's say you've started this internal rebellion. You've muzzled the inner servant. You aren't apologizing anymore. How does this new inverted identity actually move through a physical space? Because holding that internal tension has to manifest externally somehow, right?
It manifests through a profound shift in physical presence, and specifically through the gravity of silence.
The gravity is silent.
Yeah. The Machiavellian mechanics of owning a room are completely counterintuitive to the modern age. We live in this attention economy.
Right. TikTok, social media, everything.
Everyone is fighting to be the loudest, the fastest, the most visible. The assumption is that dominance requires volume.
Absolutely.
But this framework argues that true power is established by shifting the atmospheric pressure of the room through stillness.
The breakdown makes this incredible comparison to how predators move in the wild.
Oh, yes.
A predator doesn't sprint around the savannah burning energy just to show off.
No, they don't.
They don't move unless it is time to strike. Until that exact moment, they are calm.
Right.
They wait. You move slowly, not because you are uncertain of where you're going, but because you are in absolutely no hurry.
You're entirely decoupled from everyone else's frantic timeline.
Exactly.
To understand this, look at the historical courts of Machiavelli's era. The true center of gravity in a royal court wasn't always the king sitting on the throne, desperately shouting decrees and demanding applause.
Right.
Often, the most dangerous man in the room was the advisor standing in the corner shadows, barely moving, barely speaking.
The guy observing everything.
Yes. But when that man finally took a step forward, the entire court held its breath. The framework frames silence as the ultimate form of atmospheric control.
But let's ground this in reality because the irony here is thick. If you want to dominate a modern boardroom, or like a negotiation, standard advice tells you to take control of the agenda, lead the conversation.
Right, lean in.
Yeah, but if you walk into a high-stakes environment, sit down and just do not speak. What are you actually accomplishing, aside from making everyone intensely uncomfortable?
Well, making them uncomfortable is precisely the point.
Really?
Yes, because human beings abhor a conversational vacuum. When you create silence, you create a void. And the people around you, driven by their own inner servants, will rush to fill that void.
Oh, I see.
And what are you doing while they scramble? You are observing. You are absorbing. And you are calculating.
You're letting them decode themselves for you.
Exactly. Most people move fast and talk fast because they subconsciously feel they are beneath the judgment of others.
Wow.
They feel this constant need to prove their worth. The person who rushes to speak first in a negotiation is almost always the one giving away their leverage.
Because they just start blurting things out.
Yes. They reveal their hunger, their insecurities, their bottom line. By remaining perfectly still, you force them to project their anxieties onto your silence.
That's brilliant.
They will literally start negotiating against themselves before you've even made a counteroffer.
It's like you're turning yourself into a mirror.
Yeah.
They look at your silence, they panic, and they just start spilling data.
Exactly.
You aren't chasing the energy of the room. You are becoming the black hole that the energy orbits around.
That's a great way to put it.
But I mean, holding silence in a room eventually creates immense pressure. At some point, the vacuum forces you to act. You have to break the silence.
You do.
So how do you transition from that powerful stillness to actually opening your mouth without immediately shrinking back into that people-pleasing mode we just tried to kill?
Right. Well, if silence is your shield in this framework, then your speech is the sword.
Right.
And you have to wield it with the same brutal precision. The breakdown argues that the vast majority of people speak as if they are actively apologizing for consuming the oxygen in the room. They use these self-sabotaging speech patterns without even realizing it.
Let's talk about those patterns because honestly, once you hear them, you cannot unhear them. It is agonizing.
It really is.
The most common one is the rising inflection at the end of a sentence.
The uptalk.
Yes. Someone will state a fact like, the marketing budget is capped at $50,000.
Right.
It turns a definitive statement into a plea for validation, or that little nervous chuckle people do right after they make a serious point, just to diffuse the tension they just created.
And then there are the filler phrases, which the framework vividly describes as escape hatches for the weak.
Escape hatches.
Yeah, phrases like, I think, or I could be wrong, but or. Does that make sense?
Guilty.
We all are, but these are preemptive white flags. You are building in an excuse for the listener to dismiss you before you have even finished delivering your thought.
Because you're terrified of standing behind your own intellect.
Exactly.
So if those are the escape hatches, what is the alternative? Like, how does the Machiavellian voice actually sound?
It is slow, it is calm, and above all, it is final.
Final.
You do not speak to open a debate. You speak to issue a decree. You strip away every single modifier. You drop the pitch of your voice at the end of your sentences to signal that the thought is complete and not up for negotiation.
The breakdown points out something incredibly cynical here, but it's really hard to argue with.
What's that?
It notes that human beings are fundamentally not logical creatures. We are emotional creatures.
Very true.
In a group setting, people do not naturally gravitate toward the absolute empirical truth. They gravitate toward the person displaying the highest level of conviction.
It is a phenomenal point. If you deliver a statement with absolute unwavering certainty, the human brain automatically assumes you must possess the underlying data to back it up.
Even if you don't.
Even if you don't. Conversely, if you present mathematically flawless data but your voice shakes and you use filler words, the audience will assume your data is flawed.
The delivery is the data.
Exactly. The tone of your voice signals exactly where you perceive yourself to be in the hierarchy.
Okay, hold on. Let me throw a real-world edge case at you, because this sounds incredibly cinematic in theory.
All right, let's hear it.
Let's say I'm in a corporate boardroom. I've killed my inner servant. I've held the silence. I finally speak, and I drop a statement with this slow, absolute Machiavellian finality.
You sound like a king issuing a decree.
Exactly. And my CEO looks across the table, pulls up a spreadsheet, and directly contradicts me in front of the entire executive team.
Okay.
Human instinct. I mean, the fight or flight response is to immediately defend yourself, to pull up your own data, start arguing your methodology and prove them wrong. How does this framework handle a direct authoritative challenge?
This is where the framework introduces its most controversial and practically terrifying tactic.
Okay, brace myself.
When you are directly challenged, the absolute worst thing you can do is engage in a defensive debate. The mandate is never defend, never redirect, and never justify.
Never defend. If my CEO says my revenue projection is impossible, I'm just supposed to accept that.
You don't accept it, but you refuse to litigate it.
Wait, what does that mean?
Because the moment you start defending your position, you are subconsciously signaling that the other person holds the authority to judge your reality.
Oh.
You are stepping into their frame. Instead, the framework suggests you look at them calmly, hold eye contact, and simply say, I disagree, or that is incorrect. And then you immediately pivot to the next agenda item.
Are you kidding me?
I am not.
If I tell my CEO that is incorrect and try to move on, I'm getting fired, like immediately. How does this tactical arrogance survive in a real-world hierarchy?
You are hitting on the crucial nuance of this entire philosophy, which is leverage.
Leverage.
Right. This tactic is suicidal if you are a replaceable junior analyst.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if you have spent years building undeniable value, if you are the linchpin of an operation, this move is devastatingly effective.
Why?
Because it completely short-circuits the opponent's script. When someone attacks your point, they expect a defensive flurry, they're prepared for a debate.
Right, they have their arguments ready.
Exactly. When you simply state that is incorrect and move on, you are signaling that their challenge is so fundamentally flawed, it doesn't even warrant your cognitive energy to dismantle it.
You are treating their contradiction like a fly buzzing around your head. You notice it, but you don't debate the fly. You just keep walking.
Exactly. It creates a massive psychological burden on the challenger. They are left holding their spreadsheet completely unacknowledged while the room's momentum has already moved past them.
Wow.
But here's the catch. To execute that, to look an authority figure in the eye, dismiss them with 3 words, and not have your voice crack or your face turn red requires a monstrous level of internal regulation.
Which transitions us perfectly into the next layer of this philosophy.
Yes, the internal work.
Because mastering your posture, weaponizing your silence, and calibrating your vocal cords, I mean, all of that external armor is completely useless if someone can still unravel you internally with a single well-placed snide comment. If your emotional core is fragile, your Machiavellian exterior is just cosplay. True power requires the construction of what the source calls the fortress mind.
The fortress mind. It addresses the ultimate vulnerability, which is the danger of being what Machiavelli would call a manageable man.
A manageable man.
Right. If the people around you know what moves you emotionally, they have the schematic to control you. They know exactly which buttons to press.
I picture this like sitting at a high-stakes poker table, but you are hooked up to a heart rate monitor that is broadcasting to a giant screen behind you.
That's a terrifying image, but yes.
Right. Every time you get a good hand, your heart spikes. Every time someone bluffs, it races. It doesn't matter how good your poker face is if everyone can read your physiological data.
Exactly.
If a whisper of disrespect from a rival makes your jaw clench in anger, or if a compliment from a superior makes you visibly soften and seek their approval, your emotions do not belong to you.
They belong to whoever is speaking to you. And manageable men are entirely predictable. A boss doesn't need to give a manageable man a raise. They just need to give him a compliment because they know his ego runs on external validation.
Ouch.
A rival doesn't need to outwork a manageable man. They just need to insult him, knowing he will burn all his energy throwing an emotional tantrum.
That is so true.
The fortress mind demands that you stop being a reactor and start being a calculator. You must begin treating every single emotional provocation, good or bad, as pure, detached data.
Okay, let's role play this to see how the computation actually works.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's step out of the boardroom and into the suburbs. It's Saturday. I'm mowing my lawn.
Nice and relaxing.
Right. My neighbor walks over, leans on the fence, and says, "Looks like you finally decided to take care of those weeds." My wife was starting to think the house was abandoned.
Ugh, the classic passive-aggressive neighbor.
Right. Now, in a fraction of a second, my amygdala spikes.
Mm.
My inner servant wants to nervously laugh and apologize for being busy. Or my ego wants to immediately insult his ugly siding. Walk me through the fortress mind computation in that exact 3-second window.
Okay. The first step is intercepting the amygdala hijack. You do not laugh, and you do not insult him back.
Okay.
Both of those are reactions, and reactions are a transfer of power. Instead, you look at him, you hold the silence, and you extract the data.
Extract the data.
The internal computation sounds like this. Why is he initiating this hostility? What internal inadequacy is he trying to soothe by attempting to diminish me?
So instead of feeling insulted, I'm analyzing him like a specimen in a lab.
Exactly. You realize his comment has absolutely nothing to do with your lawn and everything to do with his own desperate need to assert petty dominance.
Interesting.
He wants a reaction to validate his existence. By giving him a flat, cold stare and perhaps a completely unbothered nod before returning to your work, you deny him that validation. You starve him.
Wow. And the framework points out that positive reinforcement is actually much harder to defend against than insults.
Oh, absolutely.
When someone praises you, the instinct is to just melt into gratitude. We let our guard down entirely, but the fortress mind computation demands you analyze the praise.
You have to ask yourself, why are they complimenting me right now?
Right? What leverage are they trying to build? What favor are they going to ask for tomorrow?
It sounds deeply paranoid, I know, but from a strategic standpoint, it ensures you are never caught off guard.
Yeah.
To achieve this state, the video points to a specific psychological root virus that you have to brutally eradicate from your system. And this is perhaps the hardest pill to swallow in the entire deep dive.
What's the virus?
The virus is the human desire to be understood.
The need to be seen, to have people know your true intentions, to feel validated by your peers.
Yes. The framework argues that the desire to be understood is the very chain that binds you to mediocrity.
Also.
If you desperately need people to understand why you made a tough decision, you will over-explain yourself. You will compromise your vision. You will dilute your boundaries. You have to burn that desire to the ground. You do not exist to be understood by the masses. You exist to move the world around you to your advantage.
But, okay, if I play the foil here again,
Please do.
what are we actually building? If you kill your desire to be understood, if you treat your neighbor's annoyance as data, if you treat your coworker's praise as manipulation, don't you just become a dead-eyed robot?
A lot of people think that.
Because that doesn't sound like living a powerful life. That sounds like a terrifying, numb existence.
That is a very common misinterpretation, and the source exquisitely reframes this. The fortress mind does not make you emotionless.
It doesn't.
No. You do not become a psychopath devoid of feeling. You are a biological organism. You will still feel anger, fear, joy, and insult.
Okay, good to know.
The difference is the latency period between the feeling and the action. You feel everything, but you act on nothing, unless it strategically serves your desired outcome.
So the emotion is real, but the expression of it is locked down. The emotion becomes a raw resource.
Perfectly stated. It is fuel. You feel a surge of anger at a competitor. You don't yell. You don't send a furious email.
You don't tweet about it.
Exactly. You route that anger into the furnace and use it to outwork them for the next 6 months. You feel insulted by a mentor. You use the knowledge of their hostility as leverage to navigate around them.
That makes sense.
You become psychologically unreachable. The world can test you, praise you, attack you, or ignore you, but your external baseline remains perfectly calibrated. You dictate the rules of engagement because you are no longer a hostage to the need for external validation.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together, because we have built an absolute juggernaut of an identity here.
We really have.
We've killed the inner servant. We are holding physical space with the stillness of a predator. We are speaking in absolute, uncompromising decrees. We have built a fortress mind that converts insults into raw data.
It's a lot of armor.
It is. But there is one final, brutal test. It is the crucible that shatters even the most meticulously crafted confidence.
And that is rejection.
Exactly. How do you maintain this architecture when the world looks at you, evaluates you, and simply says no?
Rejection is the ultimate stress test of the Machiavellian framework. To the untrained mind, rejection is an existential threat.
Yeah, it hurts.
It's a deep personal wound that triggers all of our evolutionary fears of being cast out of the tribe. But to the powerful, rejection is merely a signal. It is market intel.
The video has a line that hits like a freight train. It says, rejection is not personal, it is positional. We have to break that down.
Gladly. When someone rejects you, whether it's a massive client choosing a competitor, a boss passing you over for a promotion, or even a romantic partner walking away, your ego screams that they are rejecting your soul.
Right. It feels intensely personal.
The framework demands you look at it positionally. It simply means that in this specific moment, based on their specific calculus, they believe they can survive and thrive without your presence.
They believe they lose nothing by saying no.
Exactly. It is not an indictment of your worth as a human being. It is simply a data point about your perceived market value in their reality. And to handle this, the source provides a ruthless, multi-phase methodology to turn that rejection into a weapon.
Let's walk through this process because it completely flips the script on how we are taught to handle failure.
It really does.
Let's use this scenario. You have been negotiating a massive, career-defining partnership for 6 months.
High stakes.
Very high stakes. You walk into the final meeting, and the prospective partner looks at you and says, "We've decided to go in a different direction. We are passing on the deal."
Ouch.
The first phase of the framework kicks in immediately, right?
Yeah.
Never appear affected.
Yes. The very second you show pain, panic, or disappointment, you validate their decision to reject you.
Because it shows you're desperate.
It signals that you needed them more than they needed you. The Machiavellian mind does not panic when a door slams shut. You do not ask for a detailed explanation of why they are passing.
You don't try to save it.
No. You do not offer to lower your price or change your terms. You simply accept the information with absolute chilling indifference. The video describes it beautifully. You just make the room colder.
Because rejection is only fully materialized when the rejected party acknowledges it emotionally.
Exactly.
By refusing to react, you leave them holding the weight of their own decision in a vacuum, which triggers the second phase. Withdrawing your presence, strategic absence.
This is where most people fail entirely.
Oh, yeah.
The modern instinct is to seek closure. We want to send the long, emotional email explaining why they are making a mistake. We want to ask for an exit interview.
We want to stay connected on LinkedIn to show them there are no hard feelings.
Exactly. The framework says, absolutely not. You vanish. You remove the asset they just took for granted, which is your time, your energy, and your attention.
You amputate their access to you.
Yes. The text quotes Machiavelli directly here. Men should be either treated generously or destroyed because they take revenge for slight injuries, but not for ones too severe.
Okay, slightly dramatic for corporate America.
Well, obviously, in a modern corporate or social context, you aren't physically destroying anyone. The psychological equivalent of destruction is making them completely irrelevant to your reality.
I see.
You don't harbor petty grudges. You don't try to sabotage them. You make your silence so profound, so absolute, that they eventually begin to wonder if they ever truly had access to you in the first place.
Make your silence louder than your words. That is a terrifyingly effective strategy.
It really works.
Think about the psychology of the person who just rejected you. When they say no, they are bracing for an impact. They expect you to argue or be sad or act defensive.
Right.
When you give them nothing and then simply disappear, it creates massive cognitive dissonance. It triggers a weird anxiety loop.
They start second-guessing themselves.
Exactly. They start asking themselves, wait, why wasn't he upset? Does he know something I don't? Did I just make a mistake? You manufacture your own closure by starving them of a reaction.
You weaponize their own uncertainty against them. And while they are dealing with that void, you move to the third phase internally, reframing the narrative.
Okay, how does that work?
Rejection only destroys your confidence if you view yourself as a beggar who was denied a coin. You have to rewrite the internal story. You weren't rejected. You selected yourself out of a game that was entirely too small for your ambition.
It's a test of their discernment. You presented them with an opportunity to recognize your value. They failed the test.
Precisely.
They disqualified themselves from participating in your future. It's an aggressive mental pivot, but it protects the fortress mind.
And that pivot allows you to transition into the fourth phase, converting the rejection into control.
Right.
Rejection is the ultimate fog lifter. It burns away all the pleasantries and provides absolute, undeniable clarity on who respects your value and who does not.
It shows you exactly where you stand.
Yes. You take that clarity and you use the anger and frustration as raw fuel. You retreat into the shadows, refine your edge, and amplify your value in complete silence. You build your empire away from their view.
You don't post about the grind. You don't try to prove them wrong on social media.
No, none of that.
You just put your head down and build undeniable leverage, which sets up the fifth and final phase, The culmination of this entire philosophy,
Yeah.
weaponizing the comeback.
This is where we see the stark difference between petty revenge and true power.
Because revenge is messy.
Revenge is an emotional, messy, unpredictable reaction. It proves you are still tethered to the person who hurt you. Machiavellian power is cold, mathematical, and inevitable.
You do not try to get back at the person who rejected you.
No, you let the sheer gravity of your eventual success handle the retribution.
You wait until your success is so massive, so highly visible, that they cannot possibly ignore it.
Yeah.
And inevitably, years later, you end up back in a shared space, a massive industry conference, or a boardroom where you are now the majority stakeholder. You are dominating the exact room they thought you weren't good enough for.
It's a great feeling.
And when you see them, you don't rub it in. You don't offer a sarcastic remark. You don't confront them about the past. You offer nothing but a simple, unbothered glance.
Or perhaps no glance at all.
Wow. Because you are no longer trying to be accepted by them. You have become the standard by which the room is measured.
Exactly.
By removing your emotional accessibility entirely, you force them to perpetually feel the void you left behind. You take their initial rejection and you turn it into the very anvil upon which you forged your legendary status.
It is incredibly powerful.
We have traversed some incredibly intense, heavy psychological terrain today. Let's try to synthesize this entire journey.
Let's do it.
We started by brutally suffocating the inner servant, rewriting our factory settings to eliminate the instinct to apologize and seek permission. We learned how to occupy physical space with the terrifying stillness of a predator, letting the silence force others to reveal their hands. We stripped our speech of all its nervous qualifiers, turning our words from suggestions into uncompromising decrees.
We built the fortress mind.
Yes, intercepting our own emotional reflexes and treating both vicious insults and flattering praise as nothing more than raw, detached data. And finally, we dismantled the terror of rejection, learning to use strategic absence and profound silence to turn a no into the ultimate engine for our own leverage.
The overarching paradigm that this breakdown leaves us with is stark and uncompromising.
It really is.
Legends do not beg for a seat at the table, and they certainly do not explain themselves when they leave it. They simply exist, operating on their own unshakable axis, and the world is eventually forced to reshape itself around them because they belong to no one but themselves.
And as we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought, a question to chew on as you go about the rest of your week. The Machiavellian framework makes a wildly compelling, almost intoxicating argument. The true power lies in becoming completely unreachable. It argues that absolute indifference to the approval of others is the only way to be truly free.
Yes.
But if you successfully build an impenetrable fortress around your mind, if you treat every interaction as a tactical calculation, and you successfully assassinate your fundamental human desire to be understood by the people around you, what is the ultimate cost of that absolute control?
It's a heavy question.
Does mastering the world mean inevitably isolating yourself from it entirely? You have to wonder, what would happen if, just once, you stopped apologizing, held your ground, and let the room freeze in your silence?